Let's see. Check test 1 2. All right, we ought to have audio now. Check test 1 2. Is it even playing? All right, let's see. Check test. Yeah, there we go. Now we're good. Sweet. Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? It always takes a few minutes for things to get rolling, so we'll just kind of kick around here and do some shout outs. If you're coming in and participating tonight, drop a comment over in the chat and let us know where you're watching from. That's always nice. I see Tom Downey's in, and good evening, Tom. He's been having problems with his batteries running down. It sounds like, looks like he got a answer here. I solved the battery bleed problem, Tom says. Hook it up correctly, the problem goes away. The house circuit must be completed to the house battery. Oh, not the chassis battery. Yes, indeed, that could be a problem. Ultimately, though, those two systems all use the same ground, Tom. However, there would be a lot more resistance in that ground if you're going like through the frame or whatever cable would tie the house batteries to the chassis batteries. They're going to use the same ground. That is by design. So the chassis batteries are going to be grounded to the frame in some way, shape, or form, and as are the house batteries are ultimately grounded to the frame. So there's always a place for the electrons to go, but if you have to take a longer route, yeah, that could drain your battery for sure. So interesting. Interesting. Hello, Ian Fox from Tucson. Boy, I sure missed wintering in Tucson last year. And as far as I know, the Canadians are still not being allowed to cross into the United States. So I think the Arizona RV parks are probably looking for customers because there was a lot of Canadians. In fact, there were so many Canadians at the RV park I used to winter at, Desert Trails, which is now under new management, I understand. I would say fully 40, maybe 50% of the people at that park in the winter were from Canada. Okay, so Judy White's in from Candia, New Hampshire. Hello. Hey, I think it's the first time we've had a New Hampshire visitor in the chat room and on the chat. So thanks. Nice to have you here. I used to have to drive the East Coast from down around Danbury, Connecticut, and down in that area. We used to have an office there. And I would drive to Yarmouth, or Freeport, Maine. That's where LL Bean's headquarters is, right there, Yarmouth. But Yarmouth and Freeport are really close, just north of Portland. But I always used to laugh, and I used to stop too, because when you cross into New Hampshire, is that on I-95, I think? There's the liquor store right there. It's a state store, but there's an exit for it. So I'm getting my mustache out of my mouth. Welcome, Judy. I'm happy to have you in. If you have an RV-related question, throw it over there. Got a couple things we're going to talk about tonight. To start with, we're going to talk a little bit about cell boosters versus Wi-Fi boosters again. I had a question come in, and we'll go over and read that question here in just a minute. And then I thought I'd do a couple comment reviews. Some interesting comments come in the last week, and I always like to share the ones that I think generate some kind of a discussion. We got both batteries. Yeah, Tom, I bet you if you track that down, I would be very surprised if the batteries don't all ground to the chassis. It's a safety thing. Even your 110, even the AC current is grounded to the chassis. In an RV like that, even in a travel trailer, that chassis is the ground point. So In the engineering terms, that's the zero voltage potential in the whole of the coach is at the chassis. It's metal, and it covers the whole coach. And so, at some point, somewhere, those two systems are going to touch, and on the negative side. Okay, so, and keep in mind that electrons flow from negative to positive. And but yeah, that's interesting. Like I said, they may be different grounds, but I bet if you got in there and tracked them down, you'll find they're all grounded to the frame. Tom. Let's see. Two Feathers. Oh, drats. I forgot to ponder a question for TR this week. Well, Two Feathers, you'll have a few minutes because we'll be here for a while. Matthew Tola in from Southern Michigan. Hi, Matthew. Great to have you on. Ian Fox from Tucson. He says he noticed on Davis-Monthan it's pretty empty right now. You mean at the RV park there at Davis? Yeah. I never stayed there. Obviously, I was in the Army, but I never really used any of my veterans benefits. The I went to several RV shows out at the fairgrounds, at the Pima County Fairgrounds there in Tucson, big ones. And I was walking in one day, and I had a fellow Dutch Star owner who was actually staying there at the Air Force Base's RV park. He was retired military, and we had a really nice chat. And but that's as close as I've gotten to the RV park there at Davis-Monthan. Judy White says, yes, it's I-90. Oh, yes, I-95. Using your recipe on our tanks, but keep getting odor from our faucets. We've added bleach throughout the lines for the second time, hoping that cures it. Okay, Judy, something else you can try is baking soda. So get yourself a big box of baking soda, maybe two, and mix that up in some water, and put that in your holding tank. And we need a pretty strong solution of baking soda. Baking soda is actually very safe. So I would think that a minimum 2 large boxes, if you have like a 50 to 80 gallon freshwater tank, and try that in the tank and let it soak for a week or so if you're not living in it full time. And sometimes that will take the odor out as well. Then is it both lines, the hot and the cold, or is it just the hot? Because sometimes that could indicate a water heater issue. Yeah, try some baking soda. It's very effective at removing malodorous stuff from your holding tanks, freshwater holding tank. And while I'm thinking about it, make sure you don't have a filter in the line somewhere that needs to be changed, because an old filter can really cause some nasty tasting, nasty smelling water as well. E Squared in from Southeast Michigan. Hello. Paul Incho from Vancouver Island, BC, Canada. Hello, Paul. Love Vancouver Island. Love the whole Vancouver area. Got to see Pink Floyd at BC Place in 1996. I'm trying to think. I think it was the Division Bell Tour. But yeah, great town. Great country up there. Tim Myers is in from Dayton. Judy White, great, will do. Not sure about both. We'll check. Okay, cool. So I wanted to run over here and I wanted to chat about this. This comes up quite often. This question came in from, just a minute here. I had it up here and then I did something else. From Thomas Haynes, who is a regular viewer of the channel. And he says, I have poor Wi-Fi. I have a Verizon service and it's good for the phone but not for streaming. I would like to get a good service to stream movies both in the RV and home. What would I recommend? I would recommend, if you can't use your phone as a hotspot, get the Verizon MiFi. Get the unlimited plan as it is. It's not truly unlimited. It is unlimited to the point that you use so much and then they start to throttle you back. Excuse me. So in your particular case, there's a number of questions that I need to consider, and I need to understand where you're at. And there's an application that I use called cellmapper.net. Hang on here, and I'll take you over there and show you what it'll do. Okay. So what this will do is this will map any cell service anywhere in the world. Let's take Verizon here. Now you can see here they've got Afghanistan. I mean, but we can search here. Verizon United States. Here we are. Let's just look at 4G, LTE, all bands. And let's come over here and figure out where we are on the map, get a map redrawn. Okay, so like I said, this is worldwide. Let's go find this up here. You can see that all of these green dots. Oh, did I change? I didn't swap. Sorry about that. I need to do this. And then close that. And then now you'll be able to see what I'm looking at. So what you're seeing here is every one of these green dots is a location where a person with a client, usually on their phone, will keep pinging the cell network as you drive down the road or wherever you're at. And it measures the signal quality. It pulls some information about the quality of the signal and sends it back to this cell mapper company. Actually, I think it's somebody else who runs the back-end database, and I don't know. I haven't dug into it that deep to figure, to understand it. But I do know that I haven't put the client on my cell phone, mostly because Google knowing where I'm at is enough. Okay, if you use Google at all, if you have an Android device, if you use Google Maps, they're going to they know where you're at. So as you can see here, I'm kind of zooming up into Idaho, and I'm here in Pocatello. Okay, and as we zoom up here, you can see there's quite a few cell phone towers in this area. In fact, there's one right up above me here on the hill, but we'll just go out here and let's just find one that's kind of clean. All right, so this one says this is ID number 11280, and it's bands 13 and 66. In the cell phone network, it's sliced up into bands, and those bands are just a range of frequencies. You're going to see, like over here, let me see here.
All right.
Let me get caught up here on my monitor. Sorry about that. I had a little glitch over here. Okay, there we go. I just want to make sure, okay, you can see that. So you can see over here at this cell phone tower site, they have bands 2, 5, 13, and 66. All you really need to know is that the bands are really different frequencies. And band 2 and band 5 are not as fast as band 13, nor is band 13 as fast, can handle as much data as band 66. You see band 66, that's 4G, high speed, moving data pretty good. Okay, so one of the things I would recommend that you do is, first off, go and find yourself on this map and your selected carrier. Okay, let me come back over here to Thomas's question. And make sure that you've got, good cell coverage in the area you want to be in. I'll give you an example. There's a video on my channel that I did 2 years ago. And in that channel, in that video, I was up here in a place called Birch Creek. You've probably heard me, if you follow my channel, you've probably heard me talk about Birch Creek. It's right up in here. And all it is just a little creek that runs down through here. Okay? But if you look on this map here, you can see that it's green, 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 and then it gets about right here, and then it goes red, 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 red. Then you'll get a little bit of green. Let's zoom up here so you can kind of see the dots a little better. And then it's pretty much red. I mean, you'll get the occasional green ping, but it looks like they stop right about here. And if you're familiar with reading maps like this, you'll notice here with all of these roads and stuff, that's the campground itself. Okay, it's all stretched down through here. It runs along this creek here for about 5 miles, all the way up into here. Okay, so if I was in this area and I'd see all this red, I would say to myself, there is no cell signal there. And in the particular case of the video I'm thinking about, getting an 85 meg download, 50 plus miles from a cell phone tower, is on my YouTube channel. I show you how I use my directional antenna, my cell booster, and my phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot, and I've used it that way forever, and how to get a decent signal. So Thomas, I would recommend you go watch that video, and let me get back here to the camera. Yeah, I would recommend that you go watch that video, Thomas, and that should help you understand how to get better cell phone coverage, a better cell signal. Because you're going to have to provide your own Wi-Fi. I'm assuming you probably don't have Wi-Fi anywhere that you can borrow, beg, steal, or buy. And you want it in your RV. And it's been my experience that cell phone boosters, excuse me, not cell phone boosters, Wi-Fi boosters, even these fancy hybrid ones that can connect to multiple signals at the same time, they've got these Wi-Fi booster systems that boost the Wi-Fi. They also bridge in cell phone signal, cell phone data. All this stuff are really complicated. They supposedly run themselves, and you know the unit itself is $500 to $700. Well, you're going to find out really quick is if you think you're going to be able to go and find multiple Wi-Fi signals that are open in an RV park or someplace other than maybe a parking lot at a a Walmart or a Walmart with a Starbucks in it, you might find two open Wi-Fi signals, or a McDonald's and a Starbucks, something like that. But is that where you want to use your Wi-Fi most of the time? Probably not. So I always advocate that it makes more sense to go with a cell phone booster, because the cell phone you're going to be able to take with you, and yeah, you're not going to get truly unlimited Wi-Fi, but you're not going to get that for free in an RV park in the first place. So let's just put that out of our minds. So Thomas, I would recommend that you go check out the video on let's see here. It's called How Finding Cell Coverage in the Boondocks, and I got 80 meg downloads from 55 miles away up at Birch Creek. And so yeah, I would recommend that you go watch that video, and that should help you understand how to get a lot better signal in. And definitely one strong enough to stream on, because I show you in the video that I was streaming on it and stuff like that. Okay, so Judy, we do have a filter under the sink. Just ordered a new one. We'll change. Now that's a good start. Does that filter have carbon in it, Judy? Is that a carbon-based filter? Because the carbon-based filters will remove any odor or smell from water, just like that. They're very, very good. So, and that's what I have. In fact, I have a two-stage filter in my rig. One's carbon and the other's particulate. And the carbon does all of the volatiles, and that kind of stuff. So it cleans up the water pretty good. Tom Downey and I have been having a conversation, if you're just joining, around the ground. And he says in his case, the chassis is common ground, but it connects 2 points. The house's aluminum frame is grounded several places. The Victron 12 to 12 charger require 2 grounds or won't work. Been there, yeah. Understand that. Well, it required 2 grounds with different voltage potentials between the grounds. That would be really weird. I'll have to go read the book on that and understand that. Yeah, for sure, Tom. Anyway, it's working now, so you can go south. Hello, Carl Jones from South Carolina. It's great to have you in the chat tonight. Who else we got in there? Matthew Tola. Okay. Matthew's having a discussion with E Squared because they're both there in Michigan. Rick C. Hi, Rick. Great to have you in. What's the best insurance strategy in RV insurance? Go for 5-year full replacement, or for about 500 more a year, 10-year full replacement cost? Good question. I did full replacement on mine, and I just left it at, well, no, I take that back. Because here's the deal. On my RV, it's 16, 17 years old. And it's still worth about $65,000. When it was originally made, it was a $385,000 coach. To buy one today, say a 2021, a 2022 Dutch Star, you're going to be into it for 350 at the very low end to 500 at the probably higher end, or pretty close to what they're trying to deliver out is about a $500,000 coach, maybe a little less than that. Okay. And if it's new, then I think the good strategy is to just keep the replacement cost on it. In my particular case, to do replacement cost on mine was very prohibitive, mostly because the actual value of the RV, the rig itself, was so much lower than what the replacement cost would have been. I would have been paying for more insurance than my loss. Okay, so I just kept the number 65,000 in my mind as far as that goes, and so I kept my insurance to pay what I felt the value of the coach was, 65 grand. Okay, and so that's how I managed mine. As far as it says go for 5-year full replacement, or for about 500 more a year, 10-year full replacement. If it's brand new, I think I would go with the 10-year full replacement, depending upon how much you use it, and what you're going to use it for. If you're going to live in it full time, and did you say you were going to live in it full time? No. If you're going to live in it full time, and you're going to have your assets and stuff with you, then yeah, I think the 10-year full replacement. And then, excuse me, and then make sure that you've added a rider for contents. Because the sneaky little thing they'll do to you is they'll give you a minimal amount of contents in your RV. And if you're carrying like cameras, jewelry, those sorts of things that could be lost in a fire, you're going to want to make sure that you've added extra coverage, and I did. So the way I structured mine, irrespective of I didn't do replacement cost for the reasons I discussed, is that I kept the value of the rig self-declared at around 65,000, and then I added 35,000 contents coverage over and above the value of the RV. That 35,000 also covered the small amount of furniture and stuff I had in storage, because when I sold everything, I ended up buying furniture and stuff when I moved to the apartment I bought in Denver in 2014, 13, late 13, early 14. And so I had that furniture. It was fairly new. I said, I'm not going to sell all this. I just put it in storage near my dad. It was cheap. It was $45 a month for the whole time I was there. And I don't know, I probably maybe broke even. But there was stuff, in my storage that is kind of irreplaceable. Old, baby books and photos and all that kind of stuff that I didn't want to pack around with me. I didn't want to leave it at my dad's house, or my mom and dad's at the time. So anyway, I just ended up with a storage unit, and I kept that kind of stuff in my storage unit. A lot of what you're seeing behind me, like this old roll-top desk over here, you can't hardly see it. But that was my great-grandpa's and my grandpa's, and my grandpa gave it to me when he passed away. And, there's stuff like that you just got to keep. Let me go over here to the questions, the comments. Just kind of, okay, we'll take a quick wrap up there. So I think on a new rig, I would go with the 10 years, but I don't know, 5 times 10 is 5,000. And I'm assuming we're talking Class A motorhome. or Class C, something that you've got $100,000+ in, um, then yeah, the replacement cost might make sense. I would need to know a little bit more about your situation to feel comfortable giving you a recommendation outside of what we've talked about, Rick. But I hope that helped. Also, anybody that's in the chat, I know we got a lot of guys in here that have been RVing a long time, and like Tom and Carl and some of those guys. So, what do you guys think about that? Throw your comments in the chat, and we'll chat about those. Okay, so let's scan the comments here. Hi, Jason. Great to have you in. Tim Meyer is going to have the pleasure of replacing blown O-rings on my HWH hydraulic pump. Whoopee. I'm interested in that, Tim. I think that I've been seeing a lot of complaints about HWH lately, which is really, we got this out last week and I forgot it again already. It sucks to get old. Anyway, that they've been really unresponsive. I've noticed a couple people over on the Facebook Dutch Star group complaining about HWH, Lippert Industries. Anyway, so yeah, I'm interested in that and to know how hard that is. Good, Judy. Judy's responding to a question I commented on, getting a carbon filter for her water, and she says it has carbon in it. Yeah, then I would say that if you do have a carbon-based filter and you're getting an odor, yeah, it's time to change that filter. And Tim says, actually doesn't look to be that difficult. Yeah, I think sometimes stuff like that is a little intimidating. It's like tackling the roof. Once you get into it, it's not that hard. Oh, we got Matthew and E Square. Sounds like they might be having a powwow, having some coffee, or something like that. Great to have you guys connect in the background out there in Michigan. Tom Downey, my new HWH motor was very easy to install and works great. Yeah, excellent. Tim Meyer says it's only one of the 4 check valve caps that is leaking. I'm just going to replace the O-rings on all 4 since I have to clean it all up anyway. Exactly. That's my thought process too. If you're going to tear into something like that, replace all the consumable parts, O-rings, gaskets, anything else that you might need. I think that makes really solid sense. Tom Downey says we need to do that contents insurance, make note. Yeah, you got to watch that because a lot of times you'll only get $5,000, maybe $10,000 worth of contents. And if you're wintering in that, in the South, you've got a lot more than $10,000 worth of stuff with you, trust me. So, yeah, you want to watch that. Robert Black's in. Thanks, Robert. Nice to have you in tonight. Oh, here's Ron Bunge. I haven't heard from you guys for a long time. I've been traveling and now in Iowa at Terry's Folks Place. Missed many of your chats. Yeah, no worries, Ron. I mean, they're up on the YouTube. If you get bored sometime, pour yourself a vodka and soda and sit down and you can watch a couple. So great to have you in the chat tonight, though. Good to hear from you. Tom Downey, always do replacement. Yeah. Again, I say that's, if the insurance difference, $500 a year doesn't sound like a lot, depending upon the value of the coach. Okay, here we go. I'll jump down here a little bit. Thanks. It's a new $135,000 Class C. Yeah, then new, I would definitely go with replacement. But after 10 years, I think the replacement cost would be so much higher than the value of the rig. I haven't actually done the math on it. And maybe I need to rethink it because, like I said, with my rig, I just said I figured it was $65,000, and I was just going to leave it at that and not over-insure it. That's an interesting. That might be something I want to think about. I'll have to look into that. Great discussion. Yeah, that's a good point, Carl. Need to verify the reputation of the insurer as well. Yeah, I ended up having to go to Geico. I was with Hartford through AARP, and originally it was when I was domiciled in Idaho. Um, then I had to re-domicile to Arkansas, and Hartford dropped me. They didn't want to carry me anymore. Well, it turns out that Hartford was getting away from insuring RVs, and there's only a few left now. I believe Progressive offers RV insurance. Some smaller local companies, particularly if you have a home, you might have a little bit more leverage to get some insurance. Um, I didn't have a home at the time, so I think that when I was had to re-domicile in Arkansas. So with that being said, yeah, I think you want to look into the insurer really closely. Okay, so let's see here. Ian Fox says, appreciate all the knowledge here. Yeah, you're welcome, Ian. Don't hesitate to ask any questions, by the way. He says, got a dually on order. The fiance and I are going full time as a younger couple next year. Great. Um, Wild Hickson, I met a really cute couple that just started doing that 2 winters ago in Tucson. I follow them on Instagram. They weren't big on Facebook. They were big. They did podcasting and stuff like that. Wild Hicksons was their handle, what they called themselves. And yeah, they were traveling around in a travel trailer. They had a big Harley motorcycle they put in the back of their pickup, and they spent about 3 months in Tucson, parked across from me at the RV park I used to winter at in Tucson. And I think they really enjoy it. And as a younger couple, I'm assuming you probably work from home. That's perfect. Get out there and travel now before you have a big family. Not that it isn't fun to drag kids around with you and travel. I've done a fair amount of that. But it's sure easier and a little more enjoyable, at least when you can do it on your own and you don't have to pack kids around. Let's see here. Tim Myers, there is a great vendor that does all things HWH in Elkhart, Indiana. Stewart Services. Excellent to know. Called Stewart Monday and got the O-rings today. Wow, that's perfect. That's fast. Groove Jet's in. Hi, Groove Jet. Great to see you in tonight. Shut eye is always a good thing for sure. That's a good point, Tom Downey's. We're still kind of having a bit of a running discussion around whether we do replacement cost on RVs and the strategies around that. And Tom says inflation, what you paid yesterday isn't what you'll pay now. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think it's important. Like when you have a home, that you do replacement cost on the home. You could get burned really fast, no pun intended here, by losing your whole house to a flood, a fire, whatever. Flood insurance is different, but still, to let's say a fire, tornado, something like that, that would be covered under your normal homeowner's insurance. And yeah, if you lose your house and everything, it costs a lot more to rebuild it today than it did, than what it did the day you bought it. That's for sure. Bob Woodard, hi Bob, you're new to the chat and great to have you in tonight. Says, I'm living in my fifth wheel for about 3 months now. What should I be aware of as winter approaches? Okay. Where are you wintering, Bob? Answer that question and then I can give you some more refined answers. Rick C says he's on Safeco. Yeah, Safeco with the house and all that stuff will cover you on your RV. And Safeco I think is pretty solid. But make sure you have a chat with your agent about coverages and making sure that you've got the coverages you need for the contents as well as the coach itself. Tim Myers is with Auto Owners. Yeah, I see auto owners as one of those kind of lurker, smallish companies, and I think a lot of times they're really good. For the longest time, I was with Mutual of Enumclaw, which was a Washington-based insurance company. Their rates were really inexpensive. I had one claim with them that was just outstanding. They took right good care of me. And but when I left Idaho in 14 and bought my apartment in Denver, I ended up they didn't write insurance in Colorado. That's the thing with some of these smaller regional companies. They're really solid. They're really easy to work with. Usually decent rates. But if you change your state or something like that, unlike a Safeco, auto owners I think is national too. But yeah, you can sometimes have to scramble. Robert Black's got Farm Bureau, and Farm Bureau's pretty solid too, and they're nationwide as well. Doug D says he's with Safeco. Excellent. Yeah, the thing I think it's a little bit different for full timers, which might be a point to point out to Ian, is to keep in mind that if you're a full timer, your insurance is going to be a little bit different. And you want to declare and let them know that you're living in it full time because you will pay a more higher insurance rates than you will if you use it seasonally, which is how they price RV insurance. They don't think you're driving an RV every day, so you don't pay the same amount as you would with a vehicle that you move every day. But if you're living in it full time, you want to make sure you declare that and that your insurer knows that to make sure you've got the correct coverages. Farmers Foremost is where Tom is. Farmers is good. I had Farmers when I was younger. Safeco, Rincon Beach, hi. Great to have you in, Doug D. I appreciate your comment. Yeah, and that's a good point too, Tom. If you're towing, be sure the towed is insured. Yeah, well, and if it's financed in any way, it's just like an auto. You have to carry full coverage on it. Uh, full replacement. Well, yeah, full coverage on it. I don't think they require replacement cost because, assuming you're not upside down in your loan. Um, yeah, good reminder. Thanks for reminding me that I need to do my selfish plug here and say if you're liking the video, give me that thumbs up. I always appreciate those. If you're not subscribed, be sure and subscribe. Ring the notification bell to be notified when new videos go up. A lot of you that have followed the channel may have got to see a video that I was working on that I didn't really want to post on my channel. But what I was doing is posting it privately on my channel so that my customer could go and watch this video interview. And I've got 6 of these interviews that I've been editing for her. She's a real estate agent. She teaches real estate classes, and these are videos that we're putting together that are going to help her with her teaching and stuff. Anyway, I had one slip out because I posted it up and I didn't set it private when I posted it. And so it got 130 odd views before I got it taken down. And a couple thumbs up too, but that's kind of a long way to say, give me that thumbs up. I appreciate those. I have an Amazon store. Your support of the channel through Amazon is greatly appreciated. I don't have Patreon. I have Patreon, Patreon, I guess they call it. I thought about it a little bit. I'm not going to do Patreon at this point. Maybe down the road a ways. But yeah, I don't want to do the Patreon thing at this point. But you visit my website at trbolin.com is another great way to support me. Just browse around there, read a couple of articles, look at a couple of the ads out there. And again, your support is always greatly appreciated. All right, let's do this. Two Feathers is with State Farm. Yeah, great. State Farm is a good, solid company. Yeah, good. Tom Downey, be certain that your towing equipment is covered. Yeah. Bob Wordworth, North Carolina, about 25 west of Charlotte. Okay. Humidity is going to be your biggest enemy. So get yourself an inexpensive dehumidifier if you don't have one already. Okay. I bought one. Evadry are great. You can get them through my Amazon store where you pay the same price and I get a little commission. But the EverDry, I have an electric plug-in EverDry, and then I have the EverDry capsules. And they're a round thing about the size of a small dinner plate, and they're filled with a desiccant, and they're easily recharged. They have a little electric plug on the back, and so when the canister packs get damp, you plug them into the wall, and there's a little indicator window that goes from, I think it goes from pink to blue, if memory serves me. When they're recharged, you unplug it, and I would keep a couple of those hung up in your closet. It'll help keep your clothes from staying, from being damp. The little portable dehumidifiers are pretty effective, except that you have to dump them a lot because it's very humid in the winter out there on the East Coast, North Carolina, South Carolina. I have firsthand experience. I spent 4.5 months on the Blue Ridge Parkway from about the third week of January into April. And the first thing that this old Idaho boy, where it's dry as dry out here, had to do was go get a dehumidifier because the humidity was just, it was just brutal. And so once I got the dehumidifier, once I got the dryer packs and started hanging them up, I was very happy, much happier. So that's the one thing. North Carolina, you probably won't need, but you may look at getting a heated hose. They're not cheap, they're $100, but they're so much easier to deal with than you can make your own heated hose. All right, you can go get heat tape, and let's say you need 25 feet of heat tape, so you're probably into that for $40. And then they tell you to get that, that pipe insulation, the round pipe insulation. And I've seen these, these Frankenstein heated water hoses. The thing about those is, they might work, but you got to move that around, and that thing is a huge, bulky, wonker. So I think that the better thing to do is just go get the heated hose. It's all in. It's got a thermostat in it. I used one for 3 months in Denver, technically Golden, and I never had a problem with frozen water. And it got cold there. I mean, it got cold there. Thanksgiving that year was 22 below, and I was living in my Dutch Star. Thank you so much, Two Feathers, for your very kind super chat. Anyway, I was living in Golden, Colorado. Long story we won't go into tonight. But it got to 22 below over Thanksgiving. And knowing it was Thanksgiving, I had a 60-pound propane cylinder, a big one, that I was using to shuttle back and forth between the propane store. And on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I went and got my 60-pound cylinder filled. And then on Saturday night, I had to put my 60-pound on because my other tank was empty. And so I went out and put it on. When I got up Sunday morning at 4:30 in the morning to go to the bathroom, I said to myself, damn, how far did I turn the thermostat down? Well, come to find out, the temperature inside the coach was 24 degrees. 24 degrees. I had a Brita pitcher sitting on the counter. You know those Brita water filter pitchers that had a 1/4 inch of ice sitting on the top of it. And what had happened is I had frozen my gas regulator. There must have been a little bit of moisture in that propane. And when that propane hits that gas regulator, it expands. It expands as it's leaving the tank, but it really expands a lot when it hits the regulator, and that can cause it to freeze, and I froze the regulator. What I ended up doing was I took my heating pad, I had one of those, fabric heating pads, 2 feet long and maybe 12 inches wide, something like that, put it in a plastic garbage bag, took it out, wrapped it around the gas regulator, and within 20 minutes I went in and got back in bed. I had an electric blanket. I just turned it up to 40 and I laid there for about 20 minutes, and I finally heard the thermos, the furnace start to try to kick, and it started up. I didn't freeze one pipe, didn't break anything. I got so damn lucky that I didn't have one heck of a mess. Um, so, another long story to say, a heated water hose is good to have. You might think about, depending upon how, you might think about an extra propane tank. Um, um, you're in a fifth wheel, right, Tom? So you have detachable propane tanks, I'm assuming. Usually they'll be like 20 or 40 pounders. But it's always nice to have a spare propane tank. Uh, Keep you out of trouble and keep you warm in the winter. Um, those are the top things that come to mind as I sit here and think for a minute. I'm putting together the finishing touches on a video right now around putting your RV to bed for winter, but that doesn't assume you're going to live in it, which is a completely different situation. So I might want to run a thought behind how to live in the winter. That's probably a good one. I might have a follow up on that, Bob. But great question. I hope I helped you out. Oh, there we go. So Tom's headed to San Ann, Kings Canyon. Kids are building new houses down there. Yeah, that's beautiful country. Again, thanks to Feathers for the super chat. I appreciate that. Yeah, Tim Myers is up there on Whidbey, and it gets colder. Yeah, Whidbey Island can get cold in the winter. Okay, so Steve Minton says, I have two electric dehumidifiers in my 34-foot Class A. Dump them every other day, but that's in Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah, and that's what you're going to find even in North Carolina. It might be a slightly warmer, but you're still going to get very wet, cold winters. And if you can get that humidity out of the air, you'll burn a lot less propane. And by the way, propane, when you burn it, puts humidity into the air. So, yeah, that's dehumidification is the key for sure. Judy White says, TR, we just bought our first RV. Great. A 2015 Winnebago View. Those are pretty rigs. I know the exact rig you got. Loving it so far, except it doesn't have any levelers on it or stabilizers. When we are parked at site, I get motion sickness. Okay, so those stabilizers are not that difficult to add on. Um, you know, so you might look at doing that. A good RV shop can do that for you. But yeah, that's the thing with the smaller rigs like the Views. They didn't have any provisions to have jacks and stabilizers and stuff. And again, you can add those on. I saw a really cool system added on by a friend of mine's dad. They bought not the Mercedes, but I think it was the Ram, the small Ram Travel King, I think they're called, but a small one like a View. And he built some stabilizers for his, which were really cool. He had built this little, welded right onto the frame, this little clip thing that he could just slide the stabilizer in and then jack it up or down and stabilize it. But he was handy that way. So if you're not handy with, working with steel and welding and that kind of stuff, that may be something that you could get your RV shop to put on there for you. Or like if you have a good welding company in town, that's something they could handle. Something like that. Yeah. Um, I think that's a way to stabilize that out. It would be to, if you're not handy with it or your husband's not, then just take it, and it might cost you $400 or $500 to put. These are manual. We're not talking hydraulic systems and stuff like that. These are just be manual stabilizing jacks like you would see on a and they come up get pretty close. They're pretty low as far as profile wise. So I don't think you'd lose any ground clearance that way. You're not going to be bahaing down dirt roads at 50 miles an hour anyway. So, but I don't think adding stabilizers wouldn't be completely out of the question. It sure make your experience a lot better, Judy. Tom Downey, this is referring back to the water hoses for winter. He says, get a ready-made hose. Totally agree with you, Tom. A lot less hassle. Tim Meyer says, last time he was in San Antonio, I was a young, stupid airman in basic training. Judy says, having trouble finding where to place the scissor jacks. Yeah, the frame rails on that should be exposed, or you could put them right under the axles. You're going to get a better result, though, if you can come back behind the axle. So in like those views, let's see if I can get lined up to the camera here so you can see. So here's your axle, okay? Here's your tire and your axle like this, okay? You want to be behind that axle, and usually that frame will run all the way out to the bumper. So you should be able to see the frame rails underneath the view, and you would put them on the frame rails behind the axle. And that's going to help a lot. So that's where you would want to put those, Judy. The Tim Myers, yeah, the littler views, the small views, didn't come with stabilizing jacks. Carl Jones says temps in that area near Charlotte will drop into upper 20s in the dead of winter, but daytime will normally be in the low 40s. This is January, February. Yeah, I would see 20s and 30s. They're in Virginia on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is just north of North Carolina, right? It's just north of Meadows of Dan, I think Meadows of Dan is where I was staying, up on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And yeah, we never saw any really super cold. I mean, 20 degrees isn't cold. It is, but it's not when your winters are 0 like mine. But yeah. Oh, Tom Downey says at minus 29 degrees, propane freezes in the regulator. Yeah, I was at 22 below, at least according to the weather. I didn't have an outside thermometer at the time. This is back in 13. Two days left to retirement. Yay, Tim! Yeah, that's right. You're retiring on the 30th. Congrats. Let's see here. Robert Black says, please tell us more about the heated water hose. Does this run from the water supply to the RV? Absolutely. Yeah, let me just jump up over here real quick. And let's just go over here. And because I'm pretty sure I have one of those over in my Amazon store. Oh, what the heck am I doing here? There it is. Alrighty, handy items for RV owners. Is that where that is? Heated water hose, heated water hose, heated water hose. Oh wow, maybe I don't have it on there. Maybe I need to add it to that list. Alrighty. Yeah, heated water hose is really pretty straightforward. I actually have this one right here. No, I don't. I have the Camco right there. And this has been a really solid one here. You can see they've got a vinyl wrapper on the outside of the hose and a heat tape built into it. And that is so much easier. Now that one is 50 feet. You probably won't need 50 feet. Hopefully you're not 50 feet from the pedestal. I also used, let's see, yeah, you could see, let's see, not these. Stick with the Camco. Stick with Camco. Don't go to the cheap ones. This is the one I have, the 25 foot. And the 25 foot, $77, pretty inexpensive. Uh, but you can see they're pretty straightforward, right? I mean, it's insulated. It's got a thermostat on it. This little widget thingy here. Let's pop this up so I can show it to you. This little thing here is a thermostat, okay? And you can see it sits outside at the pedestal, and so I think says freeze protection to 20 below, and I believe they turn on at 36. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I just basically plug it in. Um, I had the way they're designed is kind of maybe not. I mean, it works fine, right? Don't get me wrong, but it would actually be better because a lot of places you go at the pedestal for the power, you're going to have 110 outlets. Um, in this particular case, I just took and run an extension cord over from the pedestal because I didn't have a convenient 110 outlet in my water bay. So I just ran an extension cord from the pedestal over to it and plugged it in. But the heated water hose, yeah, they'll turn on, I believe, at probably 36 or 38 degrees. They don't use a lot of, they don't use a lot of power. And there's nothing worse than winter camping and getting froze up. The second thing is if you're in really cold temperatures, somebody will ultimately say, 20 degrees, you're probably okay, provided your undercarriage is well insulated or you have basement heat available. But you don't want to keep water in your water tank because it can freeze lines and those sorts of things if you're not well insulated. Those kinds of things. Yeah. But I have to admit that the basement in my RV is heated. There's a little vent right in the shower, and there's a switch outside, and you kick it on, and it just sucks warm air out of the coach down to the basement, and that keeps the basement from freezing. Um, Another trick you can use to keep your water bay from freezing is just to put, and they're almost impossible to find now, but was to put an incandescent light, like a 60-watt incandescent light on a trouble lamp or a trouble type of a lamp in the water bay, and that would generate enough heat in the water bay to keep it from freezing. But if you don't have a heated basement, you're probably going to want to provide some kind of heat in the basement, and you want to be really, really, really careful with things like space heaters. You can use them in the basement, but you want to be very, 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 very careful. At 20 degrees, even 10 degrees, provided it doesn't stay down there for a long time, you'll be all right. But like in Denver, where I was at, it was getting to 0 and below for a week. It would do that for a week on end. And that's when I would kick the fan on to heat the basement. Tom Downey says, does the RV have heated pads under the tanks? Did I miss something here? Okay, okay. Um, Most RVs won't. You can add them, just like you can add the heated pads to the lithium batteries now. Uh, uh, Battleborn has a electrical heater, 12 volt, that you can wrap around the battery, so you can use them in super cold climates as well. You can add those on. That would be a good way to overwinter in your rig. But at 20 degrees, provided it doesn't stay that cold all the time, you should be all right. Matthew Tola asks, has anyone used 4 4-foot pieces of 2x4 and a ratchet strap to help with stability? No, I have not. Anybody else out there? Tom Downey, Woodbey had 2 weeks to 30 degrees with 2 days of snow. You're welcome, Bob. He says thank you. 2 feathers. I checked into getting stabilizers to have installed on my Class C. The prices to do so was prohibitive, like 2,000. I put blocks under my outdoor step. It helps. Yeah, yeah, that's why. Yeah, and here's the thing, and it's just the nature of the beast. You have a Class A RV. You roll in to get service somewhere. They think you're loaded, and they're going to take you to town. That's why I generally use the Freightliner shops when I need Freightliner chassis work done. And then I do as much, if not all, of my own work on the chassis. Because, you know, it's $1,000 every time you take an RV in to do anything at a dealership. It's $1,000, it seems like. And so that made it, a little bit prohibitive cost wise. And so, yeah, $2,000 to do stabilizers on your Class C 2 feathers probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But you could take a couple of wood blocks and get yourself a couple stabilizers and not put them in permanently and just take a couple scissor jacks like Judy was talking about, and just use them with with a wood block underneath it and stabilize it like on a scissor jack, and not have them permanently mounted to the rig is I guess what I'm driving at. There you go. Tom Downey said kind of that. I should have read ahead. Put your jacks under Duba 6 at the frame corners. Yes. You're welcome, Judy. I appreciate you joining us this evening with your great question. Bob Woodard. Carl Jones, I have lived in the area and we have gotten single digit temps quite often in January. Yeah, single digit temps, you're starting to think about heating your basement. And I would not recommend keeping water in your freshwater tank. And I would recommend that you dump your gray tank and your black tank daily when it's that cold. I know it's kind of a pain, but the thing that I did run into, which is what I ended up adding a 60-watt bulb, was that my gate valves would get sticky and cold and not quite freeze. They froze enough that I couldn't get the black tank open one time. And so, yeah, I added the 60-watt light bulb in the wet bay, and then that problem went away. So that's the thing that you'll run into when it gets really cold is your gate valves don't want to work. And so, yeah, that water bay is going to be a soft point you're going to want to pay attention to and make sure you keep it warm if you get down into the 20s, the teens, that kind of stuff. And that's a good point. The plumbing can still freeze. We're not protected. Yes. And that's why when we're, let's see, Bob, you're in a fifth wheel. I don't know if you said which one. Let me go back to your comment and see. Living in fifth wheel. Yeah, some fifth wheels, depending upon the manufacturer, Montana comes to mind, build their fifth wheels for cold climates. And if you have a fifth wheel with a winterizer package on it, with a winter package on it, you're going to have the upgraded insulation, maybe a way to heat the basement, but at least more insulation in the basement and that kind of stuff. So you might look into your rig itself, and you might find that you could add some additional insulation on the pipes and that kind of stuff if you need to. But yeah, if it's 20s, teens, you get down to the 20s and the teens, you're going to want to be thinking about a little heat in the basement to keep things moving right. Hello, Camp Gora One. Great to have you in the chat room tonight. Thanks for joining us, Linda. Okay, so Gary Sharp asks, "Oh, wait a minute. Tom Downey store the heated hose in the Taylor water, yeah, in the water closet. Yep." Gary Sharp says, "Are BAL give and take cable slide outs any good?" You know, they're okay. You want to watch your weight in those kinds of slide outs. Is the only thing that I'm aware of. And then if there are rails that the rig slides on, that the slide out moves on, you want to keep those lubed up nicely with some dry lube. WD-40, silicone spray, something like that. Nothing that will attract dirt. Tom Downey says he removes the hose at night, keep it in the RV. That's a good strategy as well. Camp Gora 1. Do you think putting insulation in the basement area helps keep the inside coach warmer and undersides of the bed? It very much can, yes. Um, but keep in mind that the best insulator is air. Okay, so if you have a nice basement space, you've got a lot of air there. Okay, but like in my rig, all my doors are insulated with 1.5 inches of polystyrene foam, which gives you an R of about 8, something like that. Okay, but yeah, insulating the basement. But I'm not talking insulation like bad insulation like you'd find in your home. You're going to want to do something that, that foam, purple foam insulation. And in the case of, like, I would think that you would put it on the floor. Okay, you would put it in the basement, underneath the rig, but on the floor. Um, Depending upon the rig, because like travel trailers and some fifth wheels, they don't have any insulation at all. All they have is just a panel that's mounted up underneath, and it kind of hides everything that's underneath the rig inside the frame. But again, any insulation can help, but I wouldn't go messing around with bad insulation and stuff like that. If I was going to insulate the basement of my RV, I would insulate my floor or underneath wherever the tanks are will help. And that the purple foam type insulation you get from like Home Depot or Lowe's, I think it's called foam, something like that. That's about R6 per inch. Yeah, Tim Myers, that's a good point. Yeah, you can buy an inexpensive remote temp sensor and put it down in your basement near your holding tanks, but you still have to be very careful. Yeah, the water bay is your Achilles heel. That water bay is where you're going to run into trouble. So, yeah, if you could find an old trouble light with a 60-watt incandescent, 100-watt incandescent bulb, and throw it in your water bay, uh, turn it on at night. Um, you're going to be a lot happier if you can keep that water bay from freezing up. Hello, Steve C. from Pittsburgh. Love Pittsburgh. Been there many times. Camp Gora 1 says, I have some Reflectix. She says reflex, but I read what you meant. I was going to line with material that would keep the cold out, or would bubble wrap work better? Reflectix. Reflectix is great stuff. I have much of it because when I ended up having to stay in Tucson because of COVID, the 2 extra months into May, I put Reflectix in my windows, and it worked amazingly well. And in fact, in my bedroom, in the winter, I had a piece of Reflectix that I just kept in the bedroom window, and then I also had this funky little blanket that I'd sewed up. just big enough to cover the window. So I had Reflectix in the window and a blanket on it. It helped a lot. It helped keep a lot of the cold out of the rig. Robert Black says, fifth wheel step vents that we have blocked off to keep cool in the summer. Do we remove the blocks in the winter so warm air can get into the basement? Yes. Um, that wouldn't be such a bad idea, particularly if you're in, sub, you know, 25-degree weather in the winter. Tom Downey says, our last Newmar bill was $360 at Freightliner. Yes. I had my last service, which was oil filters and all that, and that was about 290, I think it was. And then I had a hydraulic line replaced, and I put new shocks on. And with all of that, I was out of there for under $1,000. And by the way, your RV, you pay a slightly higher shop rate for RVs than you do for cars or trucks. So, like, you go to a Freightliner shop, the trucks might be paying $130 an hour for labor, but the RVs might pay $142. There'll be a slight upcharge for RVs. They're harder to work on, and you got to understand that. With a truck, they go up there, they pull the hood up, and they have perfect access to everything. In an RV, especially a diesel pusher, that engine's packed in there in the back, and there's sons of guns to get access to, and you got to pull out covers from inside and do all that kind of stuff depending upon what you're working on. Tom Downey, winter 78, coldest overnight 11 degrees, 3 weeks under 32 degrees. So yeah, that's up in Whidbey Island. That's cold. Um, I remember fourth grade, which would have been about 1967, 68, something like that, 69. The entire month of January, where I grew up in Idaho Falls, never got above zero. The entire month. Tim Meyer says, if I know I'm going to be below 20, I just blow out everything in dry camp. Yeah, that's a good strategy, too. I was in an RV park, and I didn't feel like, I didn't feel like I was at a huge amount of risk, mostly because I knew I had the heated basement. And that gave me a lot of confidence that I wasn't going to freeze and break stuff. But that's not a bad strategy, Tim. If you're living in it full time, though, and dry camping, that can be a pain in the ass. Oh, okay, Matthew. He says he sent me a message on Facebook to show me. I don't know if I can get over there fast enough. What time is it? Oh wow, we're already at 8:15. My goodness, time flies. Let's see here. Did you send it to my TR Boland photographer and naturalist? Because I think that might be the only profile. Oh, yeah, there it is. Gotcha. Just a minute. Let's pop this up here real quick, and we might have a picture to look at. Can't quite get it blown up. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, let's see here. Can I get this over here? We come back here. So what he was talking about is this, and let me see here. I can't quite zoom up on this, but okay, yeah. Can you see that? I know it's not great. Let me do this. Let's get it open in something that I can zoom up. There we go. So that's not a bad idea. You can kind of see here how they've got that. But it looks like they're using the scissor jacks as well in this kind of a rig. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. But there's looks like instructions for it right there. Instructables.com/RV-camper-stabilizing instructions to make them. I'll leave that there for just a minute. If you want to go take a look at that, Judy, that might be something easy enough to build and carry with you. That's the thing, you don't want to you don't want to make this big monstrosity that you got to pack around with you. You're already at a premium for storage space. All right, come back over here. Let's get back up there. Thank you. That's great. Thanks, Matt. Tom Downey, thinking better built RVs will have winterized kits. Yes. And then a lot of some RVs you can order with, like I say, a winterized kit. Montana comes to mind. And they build the actual Montana. I'm trying to remember the model. But they build those specifically for cold climates. And you can find them and order them with the upgrades. They have more insulation, insulated floors, a little bit bigger furnace, that kind of stuff. Paul and Show, do you ever cover additional suspension upgrades for Class A motorhomes? I have a problem hitting my levelers on my 32-foot Fleetwood. Paul, can you give me more information? Have a problem hitting my levelers on my 32-foot Fleetwood. What do you mean? I'm not quite following you there. See if you can throw that in here, Paul. We're going to be wrapping this up here in just a few minutes. But we'll see if we can figure out what you're saying, what you're asking me there. Camp Glower 1 says, I have some of the purple insulation foam squares. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Bob Woodard, he has a 2011 Cedar Creek Silverback. Okay, I made myself a note there, Bob. I'm going to look into that a little bit for you. And I'll have an update on next week's live stream. What about doubling up on the white 4x8 foam sheets of insulation? Yeah, that's fine. You're going to get, 1 inch, 2 inches. Any of the polyisocyanurate foams, not styrofoam, but the polyisocyanurates, like the purple foam you see, they're about 5.6, or 5.6 to the inch, if memory serves me correctly. And I think styrofoam's down around 4. So, you're going to get R8 out of a double sheet of styrofoam, or R5/6, which is about 65% of what you would get out of the purple foam. I mean, yeah, you could definitely double up on it and get a little bit more insulation power. There's not a problem with that at all. It just you just lose more and more space in your basement. No, not Crown Royal tonight. It is Stash hibiscus something or other. Can you see that? It's tea. Tim Myers, Paul Inshow. I had a 28-foot storm and did a few upgrades on the suspension. Let TR looking for. He has my email. Yeah, there you go, Paul. And that's part of what's really great about this is connecting people who have done similar projects. So there's an option for you too, Paul, is to drop me an email at trbolin.com. Excuse me. Drop me an email at trbolin@gmail.com And I'll connect you and Tim. You might be able to get a great answer from Tim. I know he's connected with a couple of the other people in the chat here on a couple of occasions on a couple of issues, and it works out great. Camp Laura 1 says, I have some wool material, was thinking about making Velcro window covers. Yeah, I just made these window blankets, and what I had was I had some leftover fabric, and I went and bought a bat of the poly fiber or something like that. Um, that it's just blanket batting is what it was. And I just sewed up some, just some blankets big enough to put over that window, and it worked out really well. I didn't Velcro them or anything. I just had it where I could hang it. Well, it hung on the curtains basically with clothespins. Yeah, it's not fancy. Crown Royal is a good insulator. Yeah, it is. Actually, it's not an insulator, it's an antifreeze. It thins out your blood like ethylene glycol does in your radiator, and so it reduces the freezing point. Tom Downey, Washington, 150 for a truck, 170 for an RV here at Freightliner. Yeah, and I'm sure it's probably gone up. I think this was at Freightliner in Idaho Falls. They were 142 for RVs. But yeah, that could probably have gone up. And I think it's definitely regional and location specific. Yes, Camp Gore 1, do Class Cs have any sort of insulation between the walls? Yes. Typically, there'll be bat insulation or sometimes foam insulation. In the particular case of my RV, it's foam in the walls, and it's bat insulation in the ceiling, and bat and foam. Tim Myers asked Tom Downey, do you prefer Freightliner over Cummins Coach Care? Um, well, I've personally always used a Freightliner because I have a Freightliner with a cat. And have I ever been disappointed with Freightliner? No. I've had a couple go backs. I've had a couple times where I've had to go back. But no, I've generally had pretty good luck with Freightliner working on my rig. And I think it's Fords and Chevys, it's Freightliners and Spartans and workhorses. It's green tea versus hibiscus tea or whatever. It's all in a lot of personal taste. You're welcome, Judy. Airbags, a good point. Yeah, Matthew. Tim Myers, ISO poly is 7.4. Okay. Beadboard is just under R5. Okay. Tom Downey says he uses mortar trucks or Freightliner. Okay, good. Well, another great chat this evening. A couple quick questions though before I go. Does this time work great for people? I mean, I don't have any personal preferences. I picked Tuesday nights at 7 Mountain Time. I know that's getting late on the East Coast, but then on the West Coast, that's 6 o'clock on the best coast. Got to tease you guys out there on the East, because they're all great. They're both super. I enjoy both of them, but so 6, I was trying to get, maybe people would be home from work by then, depending upon, unless you're in Seattle and Portland, where 6 might be a pipe dream on some nights. But does the time work great for everybody? And is there anything specific you'd like to see me address? As we get into closer to winter, things have dropped off, and I have a very seasonal channel. My season is like April to Labor Day, and then after Labor Day, the view count goes down, the number of people interacting with us goes down, all those sorts of things. And so, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start picking a particular topic for each week, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion about it. Like 2 weeks ago, we happened into having a chat about maintaining your jacks. And we had a viewer in the chat that had a jack question that I had already sort of partially answered before he even answered because, we were talking about jacks. Like tonight, we started talking about cell phone boosters and Wi Fi, which is sort of RV related. And I want to stay pretty true to RV stuff. So I don't put a lot of my own personal stuff, what I've been doing, drinking, eating, fishing, whatever, the past week. It's mostly RV related. But I would be happy to throw a little bit of that in there if that was something that people would like to see. But yeah, so I'm gonna just leave it at 7 on Tuesdays. I don't see anybody say that it wouldn't work for him. Tom Downey says he'd like an hour later, but there he is. He's over on the West Coast. And then maybe some nights. Well, here's the thing. I try to be consistent because that way, because I watch my chat and my stats, and it usually takes about 30 minutes for the number of concurrent viewers. That's how many people are currently watching to get up around, well, that's where it about peaks. And then it'll hold pretty good for pretty much the rest of the chat until we get down to where, we're starting to wrap it up. And so I'm just trying to make sure that I'm accommodating as many folks as I can, but yet keeping it pretty consistent. Time works great. An hour later, Tom, yeah, 6 o'clock dinner time. I totally get that, Tom. Matthew Tola says it's good. Okay. Well, we won't plan on any significant changes, but what we will be doing is starting next week, we're going to be picking a particular topic, and we'll do a 20-minute discussion around that particular topic. Could be jacks, it could be, other maintenance items. The first thing we're going to talk about, and we'll talk about this next week, is the folks who get duped into buying low mileage RVs that are 10 years old or older. I see this all the time, and it goes way back to buying cars and trucks in the 40s and 50s and 60s, 70s even. When you go buy a car and it's got low mileage, and I got a car with 13,000 miles. I was reading in one of the forums that I follow pretty regularly, and this is a common thing, especially to new RV owners. Got a nice 2003 Newmar Dutch Star with only 27,000 miles on it. I would run for cover. I would not buy that coach unless you couldn't even give me that coach. And here's why, and we'll talk about this more next week. That thing is set. Hasn't been run a lot. Got myself all worked up. And those things, the seals get bad. Things start leaking oil. Mechanically, that is really hard on a rig. I'd much rather buy a 20-year-old rig with 130 or 40,000 miles on it. At least I know it had been used regularly and driven a lot and was probably in a lot better shape mechanically than the one that sat and only had 27,000 miles on it. But you know that it probably sat for 10 years and never got driven. Okay, so next week we're going to talk about that. Things to look for when you're buying an RV, and low mileage is not one of them. That's a good one. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Camp goer 6 or 7 AZ times good. Yeah. Oh God, mine's a 95. Yeah. Does it, the age is of a little use, of little importance. It's how long it's sat, and Tim had a great comment on that. So does Two Feathers. That means they've sit a long time. Bad. Yeah. RVs like airplanes. Ones that sit well, and ones that fly well. Camp goer 1. I wish I knew it didn't have an ODB2. Yeah, you could still find the ODB1s. Go to eBay. You're probably going to be able to get one off of eBay for $20-$30. No political comments, guys. I'll let that one slide. Yeah. Okay. Let's call it good. It's 8:30. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with me for the last 90 minutes. I think we had a great chat. Very happy with the questions that came in. Tell your friends about this, and be sure and give me that thumbs up. Like what you saw is always appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out my website, trbowling.com. Visit my Amazon store. The link's in the description below. And that'll do it for this time. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Until next week, peace. Bye. It was fun.